Hello, this is Audrey Gordon, and I'd like to welcome you to the third day of the Dataverse Advent Calendar. Today we'll be talking about solutions. And this is important because for the rest of the 25 days series, we will be working inside solutions. So it's a great idea for you to know what that means and, get a basic understanding of why you want to work inside of a solution. All right, so let's start by kind of defining what is a solution. Many people who are pro devs, they work in solutions every day, and everyone has in their head a definition of what a solution entails. In the case of the Power Platform, when I speak of a solution, in the case of Dataverse or the Power Platform, I will be talking about the solution that you see in the navigation of the Power Platform workspace. So specifically in Power Apps. And to define solutions, they allow for the distribution of business functionality across Power Platform environments. And we talked about this, I think, in the intro a little bit. We talked about what an environment is and that Dataverse sits in the context of these environments, which are usually associated to regions. So when you think about these different environments, you can recognize that sometimes the app solutions that you make will need to be moved from one environment to the next. And I say typically this is a part of the application lifecycle management model, where you're managing the life cycle of an app, right? Or a solution. We can use them somewhat interchangeably here. But in application lifecycle management, you're managing the entire life cycle, which means everything that comes from the beginning of that app, where you start to build it out in its very first iteration. Usually you build them out in the developer environment where it kind of starts off. And then as the application or solution begin to mature, they get ready for formal usability testing. And so they tend to move into a test or a pre-prod environment where you can test to see if it's meeting all the requirements that were intended for that iteration. And finally, when it's mature enough that test says, we don't have any big bugs to worry about, our quality is good for our minimum viable product that we're trying to achieve today, this could go to prod. And so there may be many people or approval processes involved, or there may just be you involved in deciding when a app or a solution is ready for production. And in production, we expect it not to have a lot of bugs. We expect it to perform correctly, but we don't expect it to be perfect. And this is one thing I like to tell all new makers. You don't have to build for perfection. Whenever you're building a solution, you may iterate through that solution. And this is what is going to help you with those iterations. Because not only does it help you distribute your solutions from one environment to another, or from one tenant to another, it also helps you update those solutions over time. So you're getting feedback from your users, and then you're updating your solutions. So if you want to think of the why statement of solutions, include the reality is that nobody builds perfect solutions. So the first time we sketch it out, even if it makes it to prod, that's probably not the perfect solution. We're going to get feedback, and we're going to need to update. We're going to need to, what we say in solution development, we need to iterate. And the life cycle is considering all those iterations until we decide to deprecate that solution. How do we actually take it offline and say this is no longer supported? That is the end of the life cycle. So when you think about application lifecycle management, we are using solutions to support the targets or the objectives of application lifecycle management. Solutions in the context of Power Platforms are authored, packaged, and maintained by a specific publisher, We give you a bunch of default publishers that you can use, but in some cases you may want to create your own publisher that you're always going to use in your enterprise for particular purposes. The publisher now will be associated with those iterations, and you'll be able to spot that publisher by the prefixes and the logical names of things in your solutions. So we'll get to see that later on, but that's just a side point to keep in mind, that solutions are associated with a publisher, and that's the publisher responsible for the authoring, the packaging, and the maintenance of that solution. Some other vocabulary I'd like to share with you before we go into the actual solutions in Power Platform is this term of unmanaged versus managed. For the sake of the beginner, let's simplify this. Unmanaged means that there's no constraints about how you can edit it. So you can edit things, you can change references, you can remove, delete, you can update things uncontrolled, right? And so normally this happens in a dev environment where you're busy building the solution. You don't need to be constrained in any way. But managed kind of means, okay, we're going to control a certain part of this. We're not going to stop you from adding data. It's managed by that publisher, right? And that publisher is the only one that kind of decides who can make changes. And this is kind of recommended whenever the solution is not being actively customized, even in test, because in test, you don't want people testing and then changing things, right? That's not the way you handle that, because if you change as you test, now your original dev environment is out of sync and you cannot continue building on that, right? So basically when you test, it is what it is. You report what went wrong, what went well, and then those things are fixed in the environment where it continues to be developed instead of in the test environment. Same thing with prod. We wouldn't want to have people changing things that could break the solution in production. So normally that's also a managed solution. There's much more to say about this, but for the sake of a beginner user with solutions, if you remember, unmanaged means any type of changes, schema, components, etc. can be changed, whereas managed is more likely to be used in test and prod because you don't want to change the critical components that would break the solution. Okay, so keep that vocabulary in mind. Lastly, when you think about what can be inside of a solution, there's quite a lot of things, and we'll see them today, and then tomorrow we'll see these in an active solution that I'm going to recommend that you import, and we kind of look at it together. So there's schema components such as tables and attributes and relationships and choice lists. There's interface components like command customizations, a sitemap, forms, web resources might be used for custom pages, for JavaScript, and things like that. You have analytics, those web resources in the user interface are usually related to custom pages, but can be used in other places as well, such as custom icons, even in a model-driven app. So think of those as resources or script references that we can point to and use somewhere in our user interface. Analytics, this is where we can interject dashboards, reports, and visualizations, not only crafted within Dataverse, but did you know you can also use your Power BI dashboards and reports in these model-driven apps as pages, just like a custom page? But you just have to remember to publish the Power BI dashboards and reports to a shared workspace, not your own, a shared workspace, and then it will show up when you go to add it to your solutions. There's process information like Power Automate flows or cloud flows. There's business process flows. There's workflows. There's plugins. There's custom components. If you were to download the Creator Kit, which is one of the tool sets that my team offers, the PowerCat team, you'll notice that it's majority custom components. It's a component library. And then you have some templates for mail merge, for email. These are some legacy things that have been used and still get used today. And then for security, did you know that you can actually craft your security roles put them into a solution, and now carry those security roles from environment to environment. And this is a big time saver. And you'll see this when you upload the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. You'll see that there are security roles that are carrying over from for the ALM purposes, so that I don't have to recreate security roles in every environment that I go to, which includes column level security profiles for those columns that you need to lock down in a special way. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff like chat bots, right? So the idea of having your bots as part of your solution. And one of the things that I love the most is environment variables. This enables you to set up a set of variables that apply as you move from one environment to another. You can change those variables. And this is most often used to change the source of the actual data, so that I'm not testing on production data. And in production, I'm not working against test data. So instead of having to reconfigure that in all of your solutions after the fact, you have the ability to put them into variables or reusable containers that you can just reference when you want to change environments and change the source of the data. But there's quite a few things that those environment variables are used for, so I'm sure you'll enjoy using those. Okay, so let's take a look at this face to face. Okay, so now I'm in the Power Platform, and I'm in Alan's environment. So this is still a personal environment, and I'm going to go directly to the Solutions folder, because basically Solutions sounds like a really complicated thing, and it is deep in its capability, but it's not all that complicated. Basically, there's a bucket where you put all your solutions. It looks like a folder to me, right? You put all your solutions that you're building into this solutions area. And those solutions, as I said, are associated to publishers. And then you decide how you want to port these solutions to other environments. And so when we work through the 25 days of flows, we will actually be using a solution together. So if you want to create this solution with me, we're going to create a solution called 25 days. And I'm going to let you pick any one of the publishers that you have there. Note, you can create a new publisher if you'd like, if you don't want to use the default. FYI, where it says CDS, that's actually the legacy name for Dataverse, which is Common Data Service. But I noticed that most people who are really planning production apps will create a new publisher. And what the publisher will do is it will incorporate this little prefix into the logical names of your data model. And I'll show you that along the way. You don't have to know that specifically today, but it helps you to kind of pull all the dependencies of a particular solution being published. And then these things are configuration pages, which are optional, but I will give you links so that you know kind of what these extra things are that you don't necessarily need for the 25 days of Dataverse value. Okay, so I'm going to click create, and now basically I have a dedicated place where I can keep all the things I need for the solution that I'm going to build for 25 days. And so this is one of the two we're going to build. We're going to actually build two solutions in these 25 days, and then I'll be able to export them and share them with you, or you can build them along with me as well. But notice automatically you can see that there's nothing in here yet. But these are some things that it can contain. And as you add things, this list may get longer, right? It may get longer depending on what you add. To know what you can add, you can look at the docs that I'm going to share with you below in the video description, or you can just click on new and kind of browse what options you have. So you can actually create your apps, your tables, everything required for your solution. You can create right here within the solution folder. So you don't have to go outside of the solution to make it and then pull it into the solution. You can create it right here, which makes sure that all the dependencies are there actually. Remember I talked about you could add Power BI embedded dashboards? This is where you would go. And here's the trick about the Power BI dashboards, which is like a little bit different than the others, is that when that Power BI dashboard exists in your shared workspace, you would think you might click on Add Existing. But no, this is the one exception. You will always start from New, Dashboard, Power BI Embedded. And what it will show you is all the Power BI dashboards that you have in a shared workspace. You'll go to that workspace and pick that report or dashboard. And then again, like I said, there's a whole slew of things that we can add to a solution. So this is a way of kind of keeping everything needed to run your solution together in one place. So when you deploy this solution to another environment, which will literally be an export import solution, you will have everything that you need. Okay, that's the point. Saves a lot of time. When it comes to model driven and Dataverse, you will remember to always publish your customizations. So keep that in mind as well. Notice that I started with new because I want to encourage you to create within a solution, but there's also add existing. So if I already have something built already, basically that's the key to solutions. What we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to look up close at a solution. So just going back to the slide deck quickly. Tomorrow, and notice at the top, before I go into what we're going to do tomorrow, this link is really important to kind of get more details on what I'm talking about. It's a good idea to read this page, even if you don't start digging in too deeply, just to get a good overview of solutions, right? Just so that you know what this means when you hear people talking about it. You know what these terms mean. You don't need to actually worry about knowing how to do any of it yet. Just kind of be aware of the vocabulary. And then finally, tomorrow, right, we will take a closer look at the innovation backlog solution. This is part of the Creator Toolkit. So there will be a link in the description below where you can download this solution today, and then tomorrow you can look at it with me in your own tenant. And we'll get to see a bunch of different components and how you can reuse this solution in your own world. Now, here's what I'll say about before I close up today. The important thing to remember about all the weekends that during this series is that although the other series days will always post usually in the morning Pacific time, the weekends will usually post late afternoon to evening on the weekends. And it's just a matter of my schedule on the weekends. But very often on the weekend, I'll take a moment to kind of double click on something because I'll have more time to double click on it with you. All right. So I hope you enjoyed day 3 and you learned a little bit about solutions, and you can understand why this could be so important if you'd like to use your app solution or flow or whatever else that you built. If you want to use it in more than one environment, or you want to share it with someone else. Those of you that are partners, ISVs, you have to do this for porting outside of the tenant as well. All right, that's it for day 3. I'm wishing you a happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 4 of the Dataverse Advent Calendar.